One of my favorite subjects is the subject of incarnation. I know it's naturally a taboo subject. It's naturally a subject that's allocated to priests and spiritualists and people who've read a lot of spiritual texts. Because if you read a lot of spiritual texts and biblical scripture, apparently you become an expert on incarnation. But I take a different viewpoint. My viewpoint is, if you've been to the afterlife, you get a pretty good idea what's going on behind the door, because the people there, they tell you. Now, the key is, if you remember a little bit every time you come back, that knowledge accumulates. That is real knowledge. Not written down, not documented by some crazy guy 3,000 years ago. Which makes an interesting point, doesn't it? Because all of our spiritual teachings, well, 99% of our spiritual teachings, of our biblical scripture, maybe 100% of biblical scripture comes from a man, a male. Some guy, right? It's a male. Information given to a male. Some guy sees some crazy, crazy stuff. A ship, a burning man, golden light, a portal, right? If you look at the book of Enoch, a fire that doesn't burn, a great glory. They're transported off the planet. They're transported into another dimension where they glean information, where they are given information by some godlike being. Most of the time, the being doesn't have a name. It's just a being. What I interpret these golden godlike beings, some of them were like digital beings, or like holograms and AI in the reality system. But 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, we didn't have that glossary. We didn't have those definitions. We didn't have that technology. We didn't have computers. You got to remember, computer is since the 40s in the public domain. The computer has been around, let's say the 1940 to 2020, let's just say. What's that? 60 plus 20, 80 years. The computer has been around, right? Less than 80 years. The modern computer. It's very, very new, right? DNA was discovered in 1953. It's a completely new concept. So if you go back 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, and you get these people who go on a mountain, who are contacted, who are transported to this heavenly world of angels, and are given information, and they return, and they become spiritual teachers. All of that stuff, DNA, computers, AI, holograms, spaceships, star portals, all of that stuff did not have the same definition as we have today. They had different words. They had different vocabulary that they used. And we are lucky that they wrote some of that stuff down. In the Gnostic texts, they wrote some of that stuff down. So when they went to the other side, we got some information. Some of that is not canonical. Some of that stuff is not approved by the Vatican. Different religions, they have selected different materials. And now the alternative community has, they've gleaned from all of the texts, and they've sifted their own ideas, and we've created this hybrid. We now have a hybrid spiritual system. And I'll just give you one very simple piece of evidence. Karma. Karma comes from Buddhism. Buddhism began in India. It is an Indian way of living. It wasn't a religion, it was a way of living derived from Buddha. Right? Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama. Buddhism. Karma is in Buddhism, among other concepts. Past life, right? Past life. Reincarnation, right? Avatars. And Buddhism shares a lot of their ideas with Hinduism, which is an even older religion, spirituality in India. Okay, so it's an ancient Indian spirituality. Buddhism came into being, later karma came into being, shared by both, and then karma has evolved along the way. And I talk a lot about karma. I have an unusual understanding of karma. And so I talk about it. Because I think, my philosophy is this. Let's say 3,000 years ago, a guy is transported to another world, is taken on a ship, and he's given information by these godlike beings. He's taken into the reality, and he's given information by the AI of the reality. The shaman, AI of the reality, by these digital beings that burn of a fire that doesn't burn, a great fire, the holy. So 3,000, 4,000 years ago, they came back and shared this knowledge. They became spiritual teachers. Religions and spiritual faiths were formed by this process. Fast forward 3,000, 4,000 years. A guy goes on a ship. A guy goes into another dimension and gleans information from these godlike beings. A bird man told me these things. They come back and they start sharing information. Now, they don't become spiritual teachers. They become what is called, in a technical term, a lunatic. They are called crazy. People ask, where is the evidence? You see the dichotomy here. You see the problem, the hypocrisy. Because the process has not changed. That an individual is taken aboard an advanced ship. An individual is taken into the reality system. An individual is taken to different dimensions and is given information. Some of that information is pretty wild. And some people, they do go a little nuts, which is an issue, right? But some people, they can come back. Now, in the past, they come back and they're glorified. They become teachers and wise people because they have all this knowledge that cannot be taken from anywhere else. It's like they have a unique understanding because they've been talking to these godlike beings, and they're given information. And an angel appeared. Right? If it's in the biblical scripture, people will believe it. But if a person today says a godlike being appeared, I was taken aboard a spaceship, if you say that today, you are crazy. Nobody will listen to you. Well, we're getting a little bit of traction, but the same people will read the Bible, will read biblical scripture and believe it. They'll worship it. Ah, yes, Moses. Well, Moses did the same thing. Maybe he was hallucinating, and maybe he made up stuff, and maybe he was crazy. It's the same process. If you're going to give Moses the credibility and the respect, we have to kind of extend it to other people as well. That's not to say that some people get distorted, that some people are a little bit mentally stressed. That's not to say we get things wrong. The process is the same. Back then, there were probably 100 different Moseses. Is it Moseses? Moseses. There were 100 different Moseses. And probably 99 of them went crazy. So they kept talking to the one guy, because he managed to stay sane. It's the same thing today. They'll select 100 people, and most people will go off base, to fall off the path, get into drugs, go crazy. But there's a few who can keep it straight, and they start to share, and they start to have subscribers. And then those people who can handle information are given more information according to their ability to process. And then some people are given spiritual information, some people are given technological information, some people are given information about ancient history, some people, right? And so we have these different teachers now, right? And I think we should respect some of those teachers. We should appreciate the fact that some of our ancient gods, they're still here, and they're trying to share ideas, right? I think it's important to do that. So when I talk about before incarnation, it's not something I dream up. There are some readings that I have done. Let's say in the Gnostic texts, I've done extensive reading on the Gnostic texts. I've done extensive reading on the biblical text. But in addition to that, I have also been transported. I have also gone to other dimensions. I have been on ships. I have been contacted by advanced beings, which I have openly stated, because I'm not that smart. I can't make all this stuff up. So they are sharing information with me, and I have to process it, and I can't process everything. When I did the work with the DNA, and I came up with my theory that God is DNA, that DNA is digital, and that God is a digital construct. Because the DNA is a digital DNA. It originates from the digital system. That our origin are digital. That DNA is it's a digital piece of software, right? It's software, and it's hardware, and that connects us to reality. It's a very complicated, there's several books I wrote on it, God is DNA. But when I did the work on the DNA, I had a very low level of understanding of DNA. I had to do massive amount of research on DNA and microbiology. Now that's way out of my field of study. And basically, I had to learn biology and microbiology and synthetic biology. And I studied that for many years to develop my theory based on information that I was getting. Now, the information I was getting is much more advanced, and I only process a small amount, and it's a lot of information. There's a lot more of that information that I still have not written out properly. There's some more advanced concepts in the Goddess DNA material that I will get to eventually. Some of it is very compelling, but it all points to the idea that we live in this manufactured reality. Why am I going the long way? But this is the way I approach things. Like, I'm not the person just to make statements and give you messages. I'm not here about that. I take the approach, I want to understand what's happening, and then I share things that I understand. So it's like, it's like an educational system. It's not a messaging, statements. They didn't say anything. They don't say things to me. But they do, I do glean information. And when I went to the other side, I saw things happening on the other side. That there's a pre-incarnation setup. And I've discussed this, that you choose everything you have to do with your incarnation. The person you are right now, you chose it. You chose it. You, male, female, your family, your location, your race, your area of study, your expertise, your career, whether or not you have a family, how much money you have or don't have, your interests, your challenges in life were chosen, you were involved in that choice. All of it. Now, that's not to say you could choose anything you wanted. This is what people would come back at me. Well, I would never choose this and I would never choose that. Well, you had certain restrictions based on prior incarnation, right? You see how everything is tied together? Because in order for us to talk about incarnation and you being involved in your contracts, in your purpose, we have to get into what happened in past life, reincarnation. We have to get into karma, debts you carried over. We have to get into cosmic purpose. What's your obligation? We have to get into different races of people. Not every soul is the same. Some ET souls come from that system. Some ET souls come from that system. Some low human souls come from that system. It's very complicated. But before you incarnated, just think of it like before a mission. You're about to go on a mission to a foreign country, right? You're like a foreign service agent. So let's imagine there's 50 agents in a big room, and they're all getting debriefed by the management, by the administrators, by the people who've already been there, the experts, the consultants. They're preparing you for your trip to the foreign country. And each of you has a brief. What you will do, what your obligations are, what your promise is. So there's like a group understanding, and then there's an individual. So you sit down, right? They pull you aside and sit you down, and they say, Paris, you've had some issues with betrayal in the past. What are you going to do? Are you ever going to betray anybody when you incarnate? And pre-incarnations, everything's nice and quiet, it's comfortable, you're sipping some tea, no stress, no threat, no big deal. This is going to be easy. You say, officer, I will never, ever betray anybody because that's wrong. And the officer writes it down. Okay. Paris will never betray anybody. Paris, under any condition, will you betray someone? No. Why would I would never betray anybody. Okay. Check that box. Paris will never betray anybody under any condition. And then they go through the list. Paris, what would you do if you have something very difficult? Would you give up? No. No. Look who you're talking to, man. I would never give up. Earth, that place is easy, man. If you're having a challenge, will you give up? What if you get into drug addiction? Never happen. It will never happen to me. What if you get into crime? Never happened to me. What if you get a disease? I will not give up. No cancer is going to stop this guy. Nothing. What if you lose your family in a crash? Will you give up? No, never. This is pre-incarnation. All right, let's write that down. Paris will never give up. He will overcome. Will you overcome any obstacle? Oh, yeah. No problem. Will you backstab your friends? Nope, never. Right? And then go through the list. Will you fulfill your obligations? This is what you're supposed to do. A, B, C, D, E. And when you finish E, we're going to have you another set. There's another set. And when you finish those, there's another set. Give me as many sets as you got, man. I can do anything. It's Earth, man. It's a piece of cake. Everyone goes through this preparation prior to incarnation. Now, because of the way it's set up, it's a lot faster. They can go through this. You know, it's high speed. You can go through this checklist very fast on the other side. Time doesn't work the same. A lot of things are digital. So you can download stuff, you can upload stuff. Here's your responses. And it's all checked. Everything is itemized. Everything is listed. And at the end, they'll say, well, Paris, you need to maintain a certain grade point average. You got to learn your lessons, right? We're going to give you lessons here, here, here. At age 35, you're going to get divorced. Age 25, you're going to lose your dad. Age 40, we got a major disease coming. And a financial crisis. You're going to be bankrupt age 42. You okay with that? Oh, yeah. Big deal. I can do anything. Okay, Paris, here you go. Oh my God! I can't take it anymore. The government makes me so mad. I'm not going to talk about aliens. That's going to ruin my life. I'm not going to stick my neck out. I'm not going to be a whistleblower. What do you want from me? I lost my kid. I'm in a wheelchair. All bets are off. Now, so if you think I'm making this up, look around you at your friends and people on television and the news. They are facing challenges. You are facing challenges. How are you handling the situation? Are you in accordance to what you said prior to incarnation? My bet is not everyone is fulfilling their obligation. Now, I've had a very difficult life. I've had some very big challenges. I know it's not easy. I know that. My challenges are different than your challenges. I know it's not easy, but that's not the point. Because it's not easy for anyone. It's equal. Your life is not more difficult than mine, because you're given a set of challenges according to you, to your mission, your purpose, the kind of soul you are, the kind of person you want to be. And I am given challenges according to me. I may not be able to handle your challenges because they are attributed to you, right? And you may not be able to handle my challenges. And I am given certain jobs and missions because of my capability. And I don't do certain things because I'm not capable, and it's outside of my expertise. If I go there, if I start attacking people, if I start committing crimes and falling into drug addiction, now I've destroyed everything I've said, right? Because that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, right? If certain people are attacking me and they're not supposed to attack me, now there's a karmic debt to me. They owe me karma. Because you're not supposed to be attacking me. You've crossed the line. So karma comes into play, right? You're not supposed to do that. I could do anything I want. I could run down the street naked. There's a consequence, but nothing's stopping me. But that's not going to benefit why I came here, so I wouldn't do that, right? There's nothing stopping the thief from breaking into a house. But if that's not what they're supposed to do, there's a karmic consequence. So there's all these little points, right? And when you come here, you need to figure out what you're supposed to do and not to be swayed because there's karmic consequence. Because at the end, you want to graduate, right? Now, if you start doing all kinds of stuff you're not supposed to do and you don't fulfill your obligation, then you're going to get an F. That means you got to come back. So the lesson today is pre-incarnation, everybody said, no problem. I can handle it. I will always love unconditionally. But in practice, it's a lot different, right? In practice, all your promises are a lot different.